Welcome to Shadow to Soul, the podcast where real human stories meet the deeper soul lessons behind them. I'm Deshni, a regression therapist and a soul guide, and this space is for understanding the deeper why behind the pain, patterns, and the stories we've lived inside, so healing can begin at the root. This is where pain becomes a doorway and healing becomes power. In the last episode, I shared how regression therapy helped me reunite with those lost parts of me that had dissociated during times of emotional trauma, my inner children that were frozen in time, waiting to be acknowledged. Today, we move from the mind into the body. Let's begin. For most of my life, my body didn't behave the way it was supposed to. When my menstrual cycle began at the age of 11, it was irregular almost immediately. It would come once a year, maybe twice. There was no rhythm, no predictability, and no pattern that made sense. I got my first period while we were on holiday in India. I remember overhearing my mom tell my sister something about blood appearing and it being normal. I didn't hear the full explanation. I just knew that there wasn't anything to panic about. And I thought that conversation didn't really have anything to do with me. It was just to do with my sister and potentially her diabetes. So I didn't think much more of it. So when it happened to me, I briefly panicked. Then I recall my mom's words that it's normal. And so I let it be. I didn't speak of it. I used toilet paper as my sanitary towel because I didn't know sanitary towels existed. I had no concept of what this was meant to look like, how long it was meant to last. By the third day, when I was still bleeding, I started to feel scared. I didn't know if this was normal anymore. I didn't know when it was supposed to stop. The toilet paper wasn't really working. And I just felt completely lost. Eventually, I told my mom, and she explained it all to me. What I didn't understand then, and what wasn't really explained to me, was the importance of a monthly cycle. My mum had told me it would come once a month. I just didn't know that it should come once a month, and it was important for it to come once a month. In the month or two that followed, I didn't get my period again, so I told my mom, and she said that was quite normal when you first start your menstrual cycle. It takes a while for the body to adjust and for it to become regular. So I didn't think much of it. Months passed and I forgot about it. It wasn't until I was 12 that I got my next period. And from there on, this became my normal. Around the same time, I started gaining weight, a lot of weight. I put on 10 kilos a year for the following maybe 2 or 3 years. It was noticed and it was explained away as bad eating habits. Although I accepted that explanation, it didn't really make sense to me. In terms of eating habits, I ate what everyone else at home ate. Because my sister was diabetic, we didn't really get a lot of sugar, we didn't get a lot of sweet stuff. It was occasional. And in terms of the rest of the food, I ate what everyone else was eating in the house. I was sporty. I was on every single sports team in school. I played badminton competitively. I swam. The weight gain logically and medically just didn't align. Looking back now, it was a red flag. It simply just did not add up. When I went to university in the UK, I had to register with a doctor. And when I was seen by her and she went through my history, my menstrual cycle came up. And I said I would get my period once or twice a year. She was visibly shocked and asked me if I'd had that properly investigated. I said no, and she ordered some blood tests, ultrasound scan, and I think hormonal panels as well. She told me that it's most likely PCOS. but the results will confirm it or not. When the results came back, everything was completely normal. She was surprised because clearly something wasn't okay, but there was no medical cause for it, so there was no treatment for it. In this session, the aim was to understand the issue with my menstrual cycle. There's a healing journey within regression therapy that we do, and it's called organ regeneration. And that was the modality that was going to be used that day. In essence, once in a trance, I brought focus to my reproductive system. And as my awareness settled into my body, my system became very clear. One image appeared immediately. My left ovary was small and black. In identifying the black that was there, I sensed an energy. In exploring this further, this energy clarified into a presence. It was a 10-year-old girl. And immediately I recognized a familiarity within her energy. I felt it was me, but visually she didn't look like me. This was a past life me. Through guidance, I was able to regress back into that lifetime. I felt the emotions of that life as clearly as I had done in my previous session with the inner children. I remember stepping into the scene of a kitchen in a house. I was getting the food ready for dinner. At that time, I was alone, but I was waiting for my father. Emotionally, I felt very alone, unwanted, lost. When my father came home, there was no greeting, no affection at all. He spoke very little to me, and when he did, it was full of contempt. I understood that he held me responsible for my mother's death. She died giving birth to me. He did not want me. That night, he brought a glass of milk up to my room and told me to drink it. I sensed that there was something in the milk, that it was poisoned. I did drink it, and it took my life. I died carrying profound loneliness, guilt, self-blame, and the feeling of being thoroughly unwanted and unloved. The past life wasn't random. It had got triggered when I was 10 years old because of the emotional resonance. Being of the same age just made it a very powerful synchronicity. At 10, I too felt deeply unwanted, deeply unloved, and alone, and confused about my place in the world. And I'd been carrying the guilt for not being diabetic and my sister's suffering. Regression therapy revealed something subtle but powerful. Past lives surface when unresolved emotional states resonate across lifetimes. Her presence in my body was unfinished emotional energy seeking resolution. Something else that I learned was on focusing on why it was the ovary, because the reproductive system is not just biological. Energetically, it holds vitality, creativity, life force, worthiness. The presence of her unresolved grief and guilt disrupted that flow. Another thing that I saw and felt was that she was trying to protect me by stopping my period. With the change in hormones, the menstrual cycle brings an emotional upturn. And being in a dark emotional space already, the period would have made it a lot worse for me. So she felt she was protecting me by disrupting the flow. So again, within the session, I had to understand the consequences of not getting my monthly cycle because of this. And it was immediately apparent that the weight gain was the consequence. This experience forced me to look at health differently. I always looked to science, to medicine for the cure. But it shows me the body is intelligent. It carries memory, it carries emotion, it carries trauma, and above all, it carries the capacity to heal itself. When there is no medical reason for having a medical condition, I have learned that that doesn't mean there's no reason. It just means that we have to look somewhere that science can't quite give us an explanation for at the moment. That session also expanded my understanding of where symptoms can originate. When there is a medical condition, but there is no medical explanation for it, the explanation can be found when connecting with the body. Sometimes the imprint the body is expressing isn't from this lifetime. And when it activates, it can look like a condition with no clear explanation. When the session ended, I felt calmer, clearer, more present in my body. I knew definitively that I'd found the reason for why my menstrual cycle was the way it was. I wasn't expecting my menstrual cycle to change. It had been 25 years that a 9 to 12 month cycle was normalized in my body. So I wasn't expecting that to change. But having the reason was enough for me. After that session, I was driving to pick my son up, and I kept seeing the poisoned glass of milk in my mind's eye. It wasn't emotional, it wasn't distressing. I just kept seeing the glass of milk. At the time, I had been lactose intolerant for over a year at this point. But something told me to ask Kinnary if the lactose intolerance was linked to the milk. And so I called her and asked her if there was a connection. And she said if there was, then I shouldn't be lactose intolerant anymore because that life had been resolved. That evening, I had gone to my aunt's house for dinner. I had already told them about my session. So I decided to test it. It had been more than a year since I'd had any ice cream, milk, dairy. But I thought if I'm going to try it, I'm going to go full swing. So I had a whole cup of ice cream. Now, normally within 30 minutes, my stomach would react and I would suffer for a week after. This time, nothing happened. And since that day, I have not been lactose intolerant. It resolved spontaneously. This challenged something fundamental in me. The optometrist in me, the part of me that was grounded in science, in medicine. I could not believe it, yet I was living proof that something medicine could not cure, medicine was able to manage my reactions. It was able to keep me comfortable. But one regression therapy session that wasn't even directed towards it resolved it completely. I rarely use the word miraculous, but to me, that's what this was. It was undeniable. A week following that session, I got my period. And that was way before my 9 to 12 month cycle. It took a few months for my body to recalibrate, but I started getting a cycle more frequently. I would get a period every 6 to 9 weeks. Whilst that wasn't a monthly cycle, for me, it was a healed body. For 25 years, my cycle had been 9 to 12 months. My body had normalized that. And only after a few months post-therapy, my body performed this extraordinary shift. I suffered from migraines for a very long time. I can't recall when they first started, but I remember having them in my early 20s when I was working as a locum optometrist. I remember days when I could not go to work. The worst migraine that I'd had lasted 3 days. Nothing would help it. And I remember leaving work halfway and not going back in for 2 days after. That migraine was completely debilitating. I was just not able to work. The pain was always in one place, though. It always was above my left eyebrow, and it would spread from my left eyebrow to my eye. And if you've had a migraine, then you know just how painful they are, just how debilitating they are. Just like the lactose intolerance, I accepted migraines as something I would have to live with. There were many members of my family who went through them as well. My aunt, my dad, my sister. I just assumed they were genetic. I had definite triggers for them. I used to get them with bright light, sometimes just really bright sunlight, but bright fluorescent lighting. I would always get them during my menstrual cycle. During another regression session, a past life came up. I don't recall why the past life came up. I don't recall what we were working on that day, but the experience of that past life is very clear. I was an Egyptian woman during the times of Cleopatra. In that lifetime, I died from a fall. I had slipped on some water, hit my head just above my left eyebrow on the floor, and I lost consciousness. Eventually, I died. That meant that trauma was unresolved. Because she didn't regain consciousness, there was no processing, no completion, just sudden shutdown. When that life was triggered in this lifetime, the unresolved injury was activated as well. That unresolved impact manifested as migraines. Once that lifetime was put to rest, the migraines almost completely stopped. I occasionally may still get one during a menstrual cycle, but they are nowhere near as debilitating as they used to be. That was another moment that challenged the optometrist in me. Sometimes what looks like just a condition is actually unresolved energetic memory. And when that memory is resolved, the symptom no longer needs to exist. It has nothing attached to it. Symptoms are your body communicating. When the message is finally heard, the body no longer needs to carry it alone. Before you move on with your day, take a moment to breathe and let whatever resonated settle gently in your body. If this episode spoke to you, sharing it may help someone feel less lonely in their healing. And if you'd like to stay on this journey with me, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next episode. Thank you for being here with me. Until next time, from shadow to soul.